Sorry, part two. So, when you're talking about washes, a lot of people think that you can you can just thin them down with water and it's going to do what you want it to do. You can just thin paint down with water. And the reality to it is that you can. If you've ever thinned down paint a lot with water, what happens is you'll notice that it begins to separate. Like you have a lot more water, and then the paint just seems to be just kind of little globules of it just floating in the water. That's because the suspension that acrylic paints are used in is actually a form of acrylic resin. And so what happens is when that resin is actually the suspension that holds the paint in. And so when you want to thin down a paint to use it as a resin, what you really want is a product like this, which is a thinning medium. It's just an acrylic resin thinning medium. And what that thinning medium allows you to do is it allows you to take a paint and thin it down to a wash-like consistency, which is almost like an ink or almost like a water-like consistency. It's very, very, very thin. Some washes can be used very heavy, like the wash on this Balder. I went with a really, after priming it, I went with a really heavy brown wash on him. And the reason why I did so was just so I could make sure and get like some earthy tones on them. Like a lot of the colors he's going to be painted with are going to be very centric to browns, grays, stone type colors with greens built in. And so I really kind of wanted that basic foundation to build the coloring from. And then we're going to go in and we're going to layer those colors with an airbrush. And that's how we're going to paint Balder. And so because I wanted that effect, I used a wash firsthand to kind of lay down that tone and then be able to continue working on the tone as I continue to paint the models. So up here, this guy is a lot of wash. Like all that white in there, that white is actually an ink. That is actually a wash. Most people think it's just white paint, but it's not. It's white paint that I have thinned down, and then we've mixed with other colors, and then we've layered it on and layered it on and layered it on and layered it on, and that's actually how you came up with. It's actually how we came up with that effect. So the last thing to kind of answer, I think, was colors to use. This is a P3 paint box. You can get these. They're about 14, 15 bucks online, depending on where you get them. Sometimes they're 16 or 17. You're not in the United States, so I don't know what shipping looks like or what local accessibility looks like. But I'm sure you could probably get them where you're at. Shouldn't be much of an issue. These paint boxes contain 6 colors, and those 6 colors are kind of the traditional colors of the faction of whatever faction you're painting. So I actually strongly recommend that. I actually have the circle box. I bought a box for every faction, and then I bought some extra colors. And I can't find that actual circle box. But I know it contains like Iozan green. I think there's a metallic in there. There's a lot of good colors in there that you're going to use. And since you already have a pretty solid stable of colors for Isram, since you already have a pretty solid stable of colors, and for everybody else, if you don't, make sure you get your primary colors. Make sure you find a yellow that you like. Make sure that you find a black that you like, a white that you like. Make sure you have your primary colors, red, blue, yellow, green, black, and white. And then you can kind of buy some of those paint boxes and you'll begin to develop your paints. And then after a while, your painting table is going to look like this. And this. And that too. And that's what your painting table is going to start looking like. And there's a lot more other paints around here. So I hope this answered some questions. Sorry I had to do it in a 2-part video, but my iPad is kind of messing up with me. Next time I'll also use a microphone so you can hear me a little better.